Yo, fam, there's been too many bad decisions by VAR this season. So many. One FA Cup semi-final, they didn't give Chelsea. They didn't give us a handball, a penalty against City.
VAR
It's too. There's too many.
officially stands for very agonizing racing. This thing is a disaster half the time, and it's mostly down to the people that use it. It's like giving an old person an
I
Nintendo.
think VAR is a very good thing. It's just the referees are idiots.
Yes, right, it's a decent bit of kit, but they're gonna have absolutely no idea what to do with it. Darling, how am I supposed to play Mario Kart on this? Barbara, you ain't even opened the screen. And because of that, there are blunders every single year. But the 23-24 season has provided some of the most mental VAR decisions and terrible referee mistakes that we've seen yet. VAR has so much potential, but because of them, these are the worst decisions that referees and technology have made for this season. Now, we're basically towards the end of the 23-24 campaign. I expect there to be more shocking displays, but I feel like this is a safe time of the year in which to do this. So I asked you guys actually on Twitter that stood out to you, whether it be in the Champions League, in a different like top 5 league, a local domestic league, or of course in the Premier League and Cups. And there were a wide variety of answers. But universally, there was really only one place to start. A decision I've talked about in the past, but one category.
The Liverpool-Tottenham game that they said was offside.
Historically, that is actually wrong. Luis Diaz's goal against Tottenham. Now, for the backstory to this one, could prove to be a very important goal and game in our title race. But it was earlier on in the season, and we ended up losing thanks to a last-minute Joel Matip own goal. But earlier on in the day, Luis Diaz is set through. He finishes off nicely. Pause. Only for the referee and linesman to decide to chalk it off. Unfortunately, that's not quite being communicated in the VAR room. They think they've given the goal, so they decide to agree with the on-field decision, not realising that they actually called it as offside. Listening to the audio is like having an aneurysm. The phrase, too many cooks in the kitchen, was designed for this situation. It's like an overly chaotic Zoom call at like 1 in the afternoon when two people have just decided to have an online scrap with each other.
You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver.
She's kicked him out. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
The fact that the deputy fucking camera operator was the only person to actually decipher what was going on.
Are you happy with this?
Is absolutely ludicrous. This is the moment when Jurgen Klopp realised that he was burnt out. This was the moment he realised he couldn't be a manager for any longer than this season. His cholesterol level was too high, mate. And Muller Cornet ain't saving him from this one.
I'm running out of energy.
Even Ange Postecoglou was stood on the sidelines, wondering where it all went wrong. Now that one, of course, caused controversy and debate for weeks, right? The PGMOL made an official apology. They released the audio that showed off the disastrous mistake that had been made. And another one that I saw cause a lot of controversy online at the time has to be Anthony Gordon's goal for Newcastle against Arsenal. This was one of the few VAR calls, alright, that is wrong, but I respect it. Because there were so many things that were questionable that could have had this goal disallowed, and still it wasn't. The dedication to still give this as a goal is commendable. Arsenal players didn't even know which part of this to actually complain about. Did Joe Willock manage to keep the ball in play or not? Was Joe Linton fouling Gabriel? Was Gordon offside in the first place? VAR doesn't give a fuck, mate. Just gives it anyway. It's like in maths, you know, when you've got two minuses that make a positive. Or something, I don't know, it's been a while since I've been in school. That's basically the logic they applied here. You know, if all these things balance each other out, fuck it, we'll just give it. The linesman had no idea what he was looking at, by the way, down on the touchline as to whether Joe Willock was in play or not.
It's not over the line. It's not totally over the line.
And yeah, overall, I think this one is like, I would obviously be extremely frustrated if I was an Arsenal fan watching this one take place, because there were so many elements, again, that could have seen this goal get disallowed. As an outsider, it is just objectively funny. It's like a terrible defense lawyer. He just looked at all, like 6 A4 sheets of paper of things that could have seen a goal get this. He was like, nah, I'm not reading this, mate. I'm sorry this happened, or congrats. I ain't reading all of that, mate. But Newcastle haven't always been on the positive end of a bad VAR call, because in the Champions League, all Newcastle fans rallied together to bring this one up in the mentions. And this is Tino Livramento's handball against Paris Saint-Germain. Now, this one could be borderline match fixing. I know, right? The UEFA handball rule is different. How it's different, I don't know. And nobody else dare at UEFA knows either. Because every single time there's a handball call in the Champions League, it is a different set of rules that get applied. I think basically the overall consensus that is that if the ball even so much as thinks about hitting an arm, it's a pen. And unfortunately, that was the case here as well, as the ball bounces up towards Tino Livramento at basically point blank range. The poor young English right back can't get out of the way of it. I'm pretty sure it hits his chest, then hits his arm, which of course in the Premier League would mean that it isn't a penalty because he's hit a different body part deflected onto the arm first. But UEFA don't give a shit about all them technicalities. If your arm and the ball are within the same zip code, if they've got the same first line of an address together, then it's getting given. It wasn't given at the time, and then VAR went and checked it and decided that it was a penalty, a clear and obvious error by the referee. It's just a joke, you know, and Newcastle fans, I'm so sorry, because that was such an important result in their Champions League group stage run. It was such a close group. That was a genuinely Champions League defining moment. Not saying in terms of like Newcastle going on and winning it, they wouldn't have done. But they could have easily got out of the group stages if that wasn't given. I'm recording this about 6 minutes after Barcelona capitulated against PSG too. So butterfly effect wise, who knows what could have possibly happened if that decision wasn't given. Now think about this. Manchester City are on the break late on. A ball has been played through by Erling Haaland for Jack Grealish to chase. He's about to be one-on-one to win the game. Alright, yeah, lads, that'll do. Right, congratulations, everybody. Lovely game of football. I'm heading back to the car now. I mean, this one actually isn't VAR related, technically. Lock me up, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that one. It is just a display of incompetent officiating. And I'm sorry to Simon Hooper. You know what? Fuck that. I'm not even sorry to Simon Hooper. How can you see a ball being played through like that? Just think about an advantage, right? You know, I feel like that just should be a reflex action for a referee to like see a ball like that get played and go, fuck it. Let's just see what happens here. Yes, cool. There was a foul in the build-up. The advantage rule is there for that exact situation. Man City, despite the foul, have overcome the odds and have played the ball through, and they've got about a 75% chance of scoring now. If you play that advantage, you've done a quality job. That's class refereeing. But giving that there and then playing it back is like actually criminal. Like that's one of those things, and I'm so glad that next year referees will have to actually explain themselves. I can't remember if it's next season or the season after, but I'm pretty sure referees will now be quizzed about these things and they will actually have to talk out about it. That's something that needs an actual interview at the end of the game. For you to go either to explain why you did it or to just hold your hands up and go, look, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna lie, thought they'd overplayed the ball, whatever. People would be like, well, you're an idiot, but they'd be like, okay, I understand, you know, it's just a simple mistake, at least he apologised. And the worst thing is, Haaland tweeted after, just saying, just simple caption, WTF. The players will get charged for something like that, even though that's completely ruined their afternoon and potentially affected an entire title race. Clever though from Haaland, because that technically, that could mean anything. Wow, that's phenomenal refereeing, phenomenal with an F. Now, I said I wanted some European stuff as well, alright? And we'll get into a lot more of it in a second. One that stands out for me, again, technically it's not a VAR decision, it's a referee call, is Jude Bellingham seeing the ball floating through the air, alright?
Oh, yeah, he called him. This pissed me off.
The last minute of injury time, and this is an opportunity for Real Madrid to grab something. He gets his head on the end of it, tucks it into the bottom corner. Yeah, I told you, lads. Get me on the wet car park. I've got the keys in the ignition already. What is going on? What is going on with these referees that watched AFCON 2021 and think the game ends in the 85th minute or something? Just wait a second. I get it to an extent in terms of, like, you know, when the ball's in the air, like on a transition or whatever, there was 4 minutes of extra time. It's now 12 seconds beyond that. All right, cool. Blow the whistle. In that moment, the ball's in like a neutral area. It's not going to directly lead to a goal. You can just call it there. Just because the ball isn't on the ground doesn't mean you can blow for full time. That is a cross in an extremely dangerous location, and the ball's in the air when he blows for full time. So he's not blown it before the cross, then the cross has come in and he's headed it in. It's in the air on a direct route, single train ticket that in this economy is probably cost about £75.80, and the destination is Jude Bellingham's forehead. Just give it another 5 seconds. It's not in a neutral area. You might be 10 seconds over the allotted additional time. It's a minimum of that amount of minutes. It's calm. Let it run for an extra 5 seconds. And then Jude Bellingham's getting sent off for complaining afterwards. If I was Jude Bellingham in that moment, I'm kung fu kicking that referee. Or in other words, the Jeremy Doku technique. This one, look, there's going to be a couple more, including this one about Liverpool, right? Where we've been on the receiving end. There's things that have gone our way as well. You could argue we were lucky in the Nottingham Forest game. I think way too much was drawn out of that drop ball, by the way. But hey, look, listen, I hold my hands up. We were maybe on the right end of the stick there. We were not against Manchester City. I don't understand how any qualified official can look at Jeremy Doku kicking McAllister in the chest in the area and say, yeah, play on, mate. Even Jeremy Doku's gonna have had a difficult time explaining that one to the rest of his teammates at full time.
The nigga swung his body to the side.
It's a disgrace to the sport of jiu-jitsu. Even in that sport, it would not be allowed. This guy's a qualified black belt with a challenge like that. I don't know. I just don't think you can have your foot in a high position like that and get away with it anywhere else on the pitch, and that's getting given as a foul. Let's have a break though and take a tour around Europe for a second, because one got sent to me that happened a few days ago as I'm recording this that I actually cannot believe. This has taken place in Norway. I believe it's involving Tromsø. When I tell you a Don has been elbowed in their Premier Division, has been knocked out for 2 minutes. The referee has seen this. This is as clear as day. A lean in, an intentional elbow, right? The defender has left his arm in. It's a high challenge for no reason. It doesn't need to be. Your forearm has no business being in that postcode.
Do you think he's there?
He's looked at it back via VAR. The officials have looked at it and decided against giving the offender a red card. Unconscious for 2 minutes, and you're not sending him off. I don't care what anybody says, all right? If a player is flatlining on the turf, it's a red card. If the Don's jaw is in the opponent's technical area, he's gotta go. If he can't remember his own name in the ambulance, he's gotta go. This is ridiculous stuff. I think that's probably the most blatant red card I have seen this calendar year. So for it not to get given is absolutely astonishing. Norwegian FA, I don't know what you guys are on. I don't know whether the threshold for a foul is just higher up there, but somebody's got to take a look at that one, because that is just genuinely extremely dangerous. And now we take a look at our wonderful friends over in Croatia. And there's a slightly different issue at play now. I'll let you guys have a little look and see whether you can work out, you know, what the problem is here. Yeah, first of all, the line. I mean, I don't know why this red line is so thick. Thick with 2 C's, completely unnecessarily. Looking like someone's just slapped a piece of paper on the screen and said, that'll do, mate. The main issue here, apart from the fact you could fit a small taxi along the red line, is that they've just drawn the lines in the wrong place. The guy who's officiating here and it's doing the VAR lines for this offside has forgotten about number 77 here and just drawn the defensive line in completely the wrong place. I can't tell necessarily if it would have been given as an offside or given as onside here, this goal. I think it actually would have been, but either way, it's incompetence of some kind. In Portugal, in this game involving Benfica, the attacker was penalised here despite going for a strike, just simply being fouled by the defender with his studs up. I mean, yes, the Benfica guy has kicked him, but he wouldn't have kicked him if the defender didn't have his studs up in the vicinity. That is a Benfica penalty, and it was given as the reverse. Meanwhile, Italian offsides are genuine examples of terrorism. How Moise Kean is getting given as offside here against Verona is nuts. I mean, yes, technically he is, I guess. There's like a tiny, like a stud of his football boot is offside. If he was a size 7 to goal stands, do you know what I mean? But I don't know how I feel about it at that sort of minute distance. I think, you know, in the Premier League, you know, if the lines kind of merge together, we've kind of decided, okay, we'll let that one slide. That clearly is not a thing in Italy. A similar thing happened with Samuel Chukwueze. I think it was against Sassuolo, a VAR that I can't even work out, truth be told, based on the screenshot that I can see here. We'll go back closer to home though, because, you know, in the Premier League, still so many examples. I maintain that the Premier League standards of VAR is one of the worst that I've seen. AFCON proved that VAR can genuinely be used usefully. They can genuinely come to sensational decisions, not take a ridiculous amount of time to do it, and also just look competent at the same time. But the Premier Premier League ain't doing that. Andre Onana has come out and Superman punched Sasha Kalajic for Wolves at the start of the season. I mean, truthfully, you could make an entire one of these videos about Wolves' campaign alone. There isn't enough space in the filing cabinet for all of the apologies they've received from the PGMOL. But this one was an absolute shocker. Onana coming out, missing the ball entirely, just clattering into Kalajic, and no penalties given. The other one I was going to mention about Liverpool, it's another high-profile one again in a very big game against Arsenal. Why is Martin Ødegaard performing a double dribble in a football match? It's the wrong type of guarding, I'm afraid. This isn't the NBA, Martin. How is he able to bend down and in essence pick up the ball and it's not getting given as a pen? Was the referee dazzled by Arsenal's shocking away kit? Potentially. Maybe the light reflected off it at an uneven angle. But either way, again, a shocker. I think the PGMOL actually refused to apologise for this one, which is even more mental. Alejandro Garnacho should have been receiving a penalty for this handball after his strike against Tottenham. Maybe slightly close range. I think that's the reason that they didn't give it, but I don't agree with that. I think there's more than enough time, and I just think the defender's arm is not in a natural position regardless, so unless it's like literally half a yard away, which it isn't, this has got to be getting given as a pen as well. I saw some United fans saying the Garnacho offside against Arsenal. That's a difficult one because I think that's about the angle rather than anything else. I think the same for the Nico Jackson offside against Liverpool. When you see it from a completely separate angle, it does look offside. But an offside I won't be taking any leniency against here will be Max Kilman's disallowed goal against West Ham at the death a few weeks ago. 4 years ago, that's a goal, and no one even questions it. No one in West Ham's defence questions it. No one back in the studio questions it. I don't even think there's a single Don in the crowd that questions it. And yet, similarly, I think, is it Akanji or is it, I think it's an Akanji header, but Ake stood in the way of Bernd Leno. That's not given as offside in Man City's game against Fulham. Where is the consistency here? Mykhailo Mudryk getting a penalty against Burnley, soft as hell. How that ended up being a second yellow card, I don't know. Thankfully for Burnley, Chelsea are just arse, so they managed to bottle it against a 10-man side anyway. The penalty in the game at the death between West Ham versus Sheffield United as well. Again, extremely soft. Never a penalty whatsoever. Calvin Phillips going to clear the ball away for West Ham, only for Anthony Gordon to just stick his leg planted in front of him, even though Calvin Phillips was in possession of the ball. That still being given as a penalty for Newcastle is diabolical. Yet when Matt Turner absolutely clamps Johan Wissa from Brentford, that's somehow not given as a penalty, even though he was basically the last man and it was a guaranteed goal if Wissa gets the ball past him. Easy tap in, 5 yards out. But genuinely one of the worst decisions that I've seen all year has got to be between Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, where Willy Bolly lets the ball escape from him a little bit, but manages to put in a challenge. I think it's on Marcus Tavernier, I can't remember to be honest with you, or maybe Philip Billing. He gets a foot to the ball and the Bournemouth player actually treads on his foot, only for the referee to give a second yellow card to Willy Bolly for being stepped on. The problem is VAR can't overturn second yellow cards or yellow cards generally, so even though that is possibly the worst decision the referee has made all year, VAR has its hands tied behind its back because it's not allowed to interject. That's crazy. Who's making these rules? I don't get it. Just use VAR when things are wrong. Don't do this whole fucking beyond reasonable doubt. It has to be a massive error. We can't do yellow cards. If something's very wrong, just change it, fam. That's what it's there for. It's not there for in La Liga, where Ben Brereton Diaz managed to get in behind for Villarreal and score a last-minute equaliser against Sevilla, only for VAR to overturn it because the Sevilla defender quite literally tripped over himself. How that was in the way of Bernd Leno, that's not given as offside in Man City's game against Fulham. Where is the consistency here? Mykhailo Mudryk getting a penalty against Burnley, soft as hell. How that ended up being a second yellow card, I don't know. Thankfully for Burnley, Chelsea are just arse, so they managed to bottle it against a 10-man side anyway. The penalty in the game at the death between West Ham versus Sheffield United as well. Again, extremely soft. Never a penalty because it's not allowed to interject. That's crazy. Who's making these rules? I don't fucking nowhere near enough of it. This is a clamp of a challenge. He might have like touched about 3 molecules of the ball here, but for me, he's clamped the player before he's actually made that contact. That is a penalty. And then in a game between Feyenoord and Almere City, Feyenoord managed to grab themselves a goal. The ball sort of is like headed forward. A defensive midfielder for Almere goes to control it and makes a complete hash of it. It then ends up going to a Feyenoord player who, in the first original phase of play, would have been offside. It results in a goal, but it's somehow given as offside anyway, even though the Almere defensive midfielder made a conscious effort to control it and completely fucked it. I don't know, maybe there's a slight area, like grey area in the offside rules book when it comes to that, but I think when you go for the ball like that, it's a new phase of play. Either way, the Almere defensive midfielder here is getting basically rewarded for his error. Because if he controls it properly, it's not a problem. It's not going to be offside, it's not going to be a goal, whatever. He makes a hash of it. Punish him because he's made a hash of it. He's given it to the Feyenoord defender by miscontrolling it. That is a new phase of play, mate. And then finally, shout out to Scotland for just general all-round incompetence. If there was to be a league that's probably most consistent, I think Scotland are up there, really. Couple of old firm examples. There was a Ross County handball that just wasn't seen. And yes, obviously VAR newer for them, but they've got to learn how to use it, lads. Come on. But that's going to wrap up the worst decisions VAR-wise.
Horrible, mate.
Pleasure ranting at you.
It's horrible. Get it sorted. Get it sorted, mate. Get it fucking sorted.